Hi, so in today's video we're going to be looking at a couple of presets from Audiotent's Jupitor pack, which is a preset pack for Arturia's Jup8-V. And we've got two versions of this pack. One comes with 107 presets, which is the standard one. And we've also got a premium pack which comes with 128 presets. And you also get the MIDI files and the wave clips as well, which is really good and quite useful, because when I was looking through the presets, I found it really useful to go through the wave audio files to kind of find out the flavors of each preset before flicking through, which is more time consuming. And also what I found really useful is that we've got the MIDI clips, and you can use different MIDI clips for different presets, or you can just use them as a starting point. You can change up the MIDI notes and things like that, which you wouldn't get with other packs with audio clips, because you're kind of just stuck with the audio. So I thought it was really cool, really liked that. And we're going to use the MIDI clips along with the presets now. And these are numbered, so as you can see here on this clip just there, we've got 017, and then the presets also 017, as well as the wave file as well, which is really useful. So I'm just going to quickly play this bass patch and give you a quick idea of what this sounds like. So I really like that. It's really nice sound, quite glidey as well. Glides really nicely, and it's got a bit of modulation going on. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this synth patch apart and we're going to deconstruct it. And I'd always recommend doing this as an exercise, because it's just, one, it's really good fun because you get to know how the patch was made. Two, I find it really inspiring. And three, it's really educational to kind of just dip into patches. And it's going to help you learn new synths. So if you get if you've just bought this synth and then you get the patches and you deconstruct them, it teaches you how to use the synthesizer, because you're working your way through the different sections of the synth to find out what's making up the sound. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And this time we're going to work backwards actually. I find this a little bit easier. And we're going to work at the end of the chain and work our way back. So at the end of the chain, we've got the effects section. And you can get to the effects section by clicking on the back panel or clicking these two arrows. And as we go in here, you can see we've got 3 effects set up. So on the VCO, we've got parametric EQ set up, and then the VCA, we've got a stereo reverb and a stereo delay. So let's play this patch and I'll turn these off. So as you can see, that adds quite a lot to the sound. The parametric EQ is actually boosting the output as well. So there's quite a big difference there. So all this is really doing is just sculpting out this area on the EQ. But yeah, like I said, we've got the output. It's just giving it a bit of a boost as well. So let's switch that one back on. And we'll go to the reverb first. What I really like about this is that when you hit the note, just make sure I've got the image 1 second. There we go, I've got this set up. So we've got a bit of a delay on the reverb. So pre-delay is set all the way up, and if I bring it down, it sounds like this. So it's kind of acting like a delay as well. And the stereo delay is turned down quite a lot on the dry wet. So it's just adding a little bit more depth and a little bit more stereo width to the sound. It's really subtle, that. So yeah, these kind of effects really kind of add a lot of depth and width to the sound, which is really nice. And let's go back and look at the keyboard section. So this keyboard section is so you can add modulations to, say, velocity or the aftertouch. And we've got amplitude, and we've also, the VCA and also VCF cutoff, which is the filter. So as you hit a note, it will, depending on the velocity, it will change the impacts that it has on the opening of the cutoff or the actual volume, the amplitude of the sound. And if we go back to the MIDI clip, you'll notice in here that we've got different velocity settings for each note. So that's adding to that really nice modulated sound that we've got going on. And it's not just a really straight kind of patch, it's moving around a lot. And I think the velocity has a lot to do with that. So that's kind of making up the sound as well. It's really helping in that area. And let's move on to this section here, so the front panel. And we're going to start with the envelopes. And what's weird about this synth is the envelopes are a different way around compared to other synths. So the right hand side is actually affecting the VCA, and envelope 1 is actually affecting the VCF, which is the filter. But like I said, yeah, on other synths I've noticed that it's a lot of the time it's the other way around. Envelope 1 is usually amplitude or VCA, and envelope 2 is VCF. So let's go ahead and look at this. So what we've got going on here, they're quite similar to each other. The release is set up a little bit more on this one, and it's just adding a bit of decay on the filter when it opens up. So if you look at this bit here, we've got this mod section, and that means that when you hit this, there you go, there's nothing really happening there. It's opening up the filter, and this decay controls how long it opens for. So it's really fun to play around with actually when you're making a track in the arrangement. You can play around with the filter, and you can also play around with the decay of the filter as well. And the right hand side for the amplitude or the VCA, we've pretty much got the same thing going on. The decay set at the same thing, and then we've also got a little bit of release on both. So when you release the nut, it carries on for a little bit longer. So that's what we've got going on with the envelopes, and then we'll move on to this section. So VCA, as I said before, is like the amplitude or the amp of the sound, so it's the volume. And we've also got this LFO mod set up as well. So the LFO is here, and we've got the rate set to 2.42 Hertz, and we've got it set to a sine wave, and that's modulating the amplitude in a sine wave. At this speed, you can see it flashing there. So we can turn that up actually. You can hear that working its way up there. Then a slower one. So we've also got the LFO affecting another part of this section as well, which is the Vcf modulation. So this is affecting the filter. So the filter's moving in a sine wave. And I'll turn it right up, and we'll turn the rate up. So you can hear that working there. I'll just quickly reset the patch. So yeah, as well as the amplitude, it's also affecting the filter. And while we're talking about LFO, I might as well talk about this other section that we've got going on over here. So with the oscillators, there's just a slight bit of LFO here, which is slightly modulating the oscillators. And it's a really cool trick actually, because what that does is it makes an analog machine sound even more analog, because you're making the oscillators seem a little bit more unstable. And also that sounds a little bit warmer as well. So we've got that set up to both VCOs. But another little trick that I found is if you switch over to just one VCO and you just modulate in one VCO and the other one's stable, that's creating more pulsing going on. So they're both moving together at the same time, but if you just do it to one, then one oscillator is moving away from the other one, which just adds to more warmth and unstableness of the synth. So let's look at the rest of the filter. So here we've also got the cutoff is all the way down, like I said before. Resonance is all the way down. We've got it set to minus 12 dB slope, which lets some more of the high frequencies through rather than the 24 dB cut, which sounds like this. So it just lets a little bit more of the top frequencies pop through. And then we've got high pass filter set all the way down, so that's not really doing anything. And then the source mix is the mix of VCO1 and VCO2. And it was more to the right than the left, and I'll show you why in a second. So if I turn it all the way to the right, this is like the main oscillator for the sound. And if I bring it all the way left, then you get this sound. It's really cool, robotic kind of FM sound. And the reason why we've got that going on is because VCO2 is modulating VCO1. So you can see this section here, and what I'll do is I'll play it and I'll bring this up and you can hear what it's doing. So yeah, VCO2 is modulating VCO1, and as you kind of move around these waveforms as well, and also the tuning of each of the VCOs, you can get different timbres coming from this FM modulation. It's really cool to play around with. And what I'm going to do quickly is just reset the patch again so we can return this back to its original point. There we go. And yeah, like I said, the source mix is more to the right than the left. So we're just kind of adding a little bit of this into the sound. And that's just creating bit more grit and sonic characteristics, like more interest to the oscillator rather than just having a clean, straightforward sawtooth sound. So that's pretty much it for the oscillator section. One more thing is that we've got the fine tune off a little bit as well, so it's kind of just making it a bit more detuned on VCO2. And next we're going to look at the Vco Modulator, which I spoke about earlier actually. So yeah, the LFO is set to frequency, so that is modulating the pitch of both of the oscillators a little bit, just to make it a bit more wonky and a bit more analog sounding. Won't worry about this pulse width modulation too much because we've not got these set to pulse, so it's not really doing much or anything. And yeah, we already spoke about the LFO as well, which is sine wave, and we've got the rate up here as well, which is modulating a few things on this patch. And lastly, we're just going to quickly talk about the detuning. So we've got the detuning set up quite high, all the way up in fact, and that's to detune the notes and the oscillators a little bit more, which makes it sound a bit wider, a bit warmer, I think. Not wider is probably the wrong word, a bit warmer. And then we've also got portamento up a little bit as well, which really adds to the overall sound of this patch. You get those glidey moments between the notes. So let's bring it down, and I'll press play, and then I'll start to bring it up, and you can hear the difference. So that's really adding to the gliding of the sound and the movement. And that's pretty much it for this patch. It's a really, really nice bass patch, really squelchy, really glidey, and I love that in sounds. And also the effects are set really nicely as well. It really adds to the original sound of the synth. Without them effects, it would sound a lot drier and not as warm and wide, so that really helps. Next we're going to look at another patch actually, so let's move on to the second one. So this second patch is patch 32, which is a lead patch called Distant, and I really, really liked this one, so I'll let you have a quick listen to this and you can hear what this sounds like. And again, we've got the MIDI clip set up as well from the original patch, so you can see this here. Let's give this a quick play. So there you go, there's that sound, and we're going to again work our way backwards through the patch, starting with the effects section. So again, I'll click here, and let's go to the effects. And so on VCO, we've got the distortion set up, filter, we've got chorus and flanges set up, and VCO, we've got reverb, stereo reverb, and stereo delay again. And what we'll do is we'll quickly maybe turn all these off, and we'll have a listen to what it sounds like without them, and I'll switch them on one by one and maybe talk about them as well. So as you can hear there, the distortion, we've got the dry wet set to around 16, 18, somewhere around there. And that's just adding a bit more grit and a bit more roughness to the sound. It's quite a subtle little addition to the sound. Let's have a listen to what the chorus and flange is doing. Again, just a little touch there again with the chorus. And then we've also got a reverb set up. So around 19% on the dry wet, a little bit of pre-delay, quite a big size on the reverb as well. And a little bit of low damping, a bit of high damping as well, just to take off the bottom end and just kind of dampen the top end as well. And let's have a look lastly at the delay. So that's also adding some more output as well. So we're actually having a bit of gain at the end as well. And again, it's only set quite low, so 13%. So it's just adding a little bit of stereo delay in there. Let's turn it up. So yeah, again, same as the other patch where it's just kind of adding in some more depth and stereo width to the sound. Without those, it doesn't sound as cool. I think it like just adds a lot more character to the sound when you start putting these effects on at the end of the chain. Keyboard, we've not got anything going on here with the velocity and stuff. Sequencer, nope. And then Galaxy, we're actually using this one in this patch. So we're using the Y-axis, which is this one here. Up and down, and to control VCF resonance, so that's the resonance here, and then the horizontal axis X output is controlling the cutoff, which is next to it just there. And what I really like about this is just the way it works. So you can use different LFOs to create different shapes and patterns with this spinning wheel as well. And as you start to flick through the rates and the different shapes, you can get different movements going on. So what I'll do just as a little demonstration, we'll press play and I'll just maybe play around with the rates and the waveforms and show you what this is doing. Yeah, it's really, really cool. So what we're going to do is we're just going to reset that. So it's all back to its original position for the preset. But yeah, I really love this Galaxy part of the synth. It's so good. You can get some really nice kind of rhythmic stuff from that. So yeah, that's the back end section of it. Let's look at the front panel. So we'll start with the envelopes. So as I mentioned before, let me just check this is set up the way it was before. Yep, so envelope 1 is controlling the filter, and envelope 2 is controlling VCA. So let's have a look at this and see what this is doing. So we'll start with let's open up the cutoff all the way up, and we'll start with this section here. So we've got the attack set up a little bit, so the note doesn't start straight away, which gives it that kind of soft start to the sound. Decay is at 495 milliseconds, so that's the opening of the sound, so the decay length of the volume, and then after that decay it comes down to a sustain point, which this would be full volume, so the volume's like brought down a little bit. So let's have a listen to this. So that should give you a good idea of what the decay and the sustain do together. Also, I'll quickly show you the attack as well. So yeah, that's adding a bit of softness, like I said. And also the release as well is just set up a little bit, just so it doesn't have a abrupt stop at the end of the note. Again, let me just reset the preset so we can get them back to where there was. I should have done it. Yep, there we go. And then let's move on to the filter one. So the filter is here, and we've got it set to around 397. So as you can hear, when I bring up this modulation on the envelope 1 is affecting the opening of the filter. So we've got similar kind of settings sort of on the filter as well. So a little bit of an opening rather than just an abrupt open. It kind of waits and then it comes up. Decay set around a similar time to the amplitude, just a little bit longer. Sustain, so that's where the filter comes back down to. And then the release as well. So that's just so that when the note ends, that envelope carries on rather than stops and then starts again, so to speak. Sorry, I said that wrong. So when you let go of the note, the shape of the envelope carries on, which is useful because if you have a release time on there, you don't want this envelope to just go back to 0. You want it to carry on with the note as well, even though you're not pressing the key, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's the envelope section. That's what that's doing. VCA, we've got the level all the way up, and we're not having any modulation on there. and the VCF, so a little bit of keyboard follow. So that means as the notes are going up, the filter opens up a little bit as well, which makes the top notes more audible if you went up the scale, which is quite useful. If you have it all the way down, sometimes it can sound too damp when you go up the keyboard. There's no modulation on the filter, and as I said before, we've got the envelope applied to the filter a little bit. And this is set to -12 dB, which lets a little bit more of the higher frequencies through, rather than an abrupt cutoff with the 24 dB. And the cutoff itself, we've got set to around here. The resonance is up a little bit, so let's just play around with that. So obviously you can play around with that in your track. And HPF, so high pass frequency, we've got set to 134 Hz, which is just kind of getting rid of the subtones of the patch itself. So it's getting rid of that low rumble, which is probably not needed with the MIDI notes that we're using. But if you're wanting to use this for, say, like a lower bass subby patch for any reason, then just bring that down there so you can let the sub notes come through as well. That's why I said before it's really useful to deconstruct patches, because if, for this, say for instance this patch you want to go down a couple of octaves and you're wondering why it's missing those sub-frequencies, by deconstructing you know that we've got that set on there and you can adjust that as needed, which is very useful. Let's move on to the VCOs. So this source mix here, Vco1 is pretty much doing the main part of the sound, and we've got a little bit of Vco2 bleeding through. So let's play it and we'll switch over to the different VCOs and hear what they're doing. So as you can hear there, VCO2 we've got set to a noise, and that is just adding a bit of noise and grit into the sound. Again, really good one to modulate while you're playing it, because you can do this. So you can add those noise moments in, just add a bit more interest to the sound. And VCO1 we've got set to a sawtooth, and the range we've got set down here. So I love playing with that as well, actually, when you're playing around with a patch, to move up the oscillators, to add little like fills where it jumps up. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the oscillators. We've got no FM modulation going on there. Vco Modulator, again, same as the other patch, we've got a little bit of modulation on the frequency. So it's modulating the frequency of both VCOs. And as I mentioned before, that just adds a little bit more kind of analog warmth and unstableness of the oscillators, which I really like. And the LFO itself, again, just a sine wave, and we've got a little bit of delay time actually, so I don't know if this is doing much. So the delay time, what that does, it means that it's not going to come in until 775 milliseconds. Let's have a quick listen. So you can hear that it didn't come in straight away. If we bring it all the way down, the LFO acts straight away. So what we've got there is we've got a little bit of delay going on. Let me just reset the patch. So yeah, I'm not sure if that LFO is actually affecting the oscillators too much, but obviously if you open up the release and you have a moment in your track where it's kind of chordal, and you turn it into a chord section, maybe on a break or something, then that LFO will start to interact with the oscillator, which is quite nice, and then it'll go a little bit more wonky. So there's a quick run through of the second patch too, which is called Distant. I really like this one also. And I hope that's been really helpful, just kind of deconstructing patches, and as we go through different synths, you kind of get to know the different parameters and layouts of each of the synths too, and hopefully you carry this on further and start to deconstruct a little more of these patches yourself. It's really useful, really fun to do. It also gives you more freedom and flexibility to slightly adjust patches or completely adjust them to suit the needs of your track. Let us know in the comments below if you've enjoyed this, and if there's any patches you would like us to cover, please let us know that also. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will catch you next time. Thank you.